Is this thing on?
And then there was one. Hi, ladies and gentlemen, anyone out there that's watching. Welcome to UCR Live, Uncensored Radio's weekly recap of the news and poos of another week of horrendousness here in this timeline that we are existing in. As you can see, the panel show that is normally a panel show is just me today. Vera is experiencing technical difficulties, so behind the scenes, I think she's trying to make things work. I just thought I'd jump on and let you know that we are alive, that things are happening, but at the moment, it's just me. Uncharted territory, a solo UCR live, which is thrillingly terrifying. So we'll see how we go. We'll see. Um, and yeah, I don't know what's happened, but we will definitely try and make it all work because yeah, I don't know what has happened in the couple of days that we have since we've recorded shows, but we're out of time, we're out of friends. Hi Joe, it might just be you and me today. We are here, but never let things stop the news process because that's what they want. We'll keep trying to get Vera in, but she's struggling. So she might be watching the show as opposed to being on the show. So now's a fantastic time. If you know somebody or if you are somebody who thinks that you can jump on every week or every couple of weeks and have a conversation about the goings on of the world, now is your chance to join me because it's pretty lonely here in this box at the moment. So if you are interested, if you think you can hang with us, hit us up on social media, inbox us on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Let us know that you want to jump on and have a little bit of a chat with us because it's hard to chat when you're by yourself. Oh, hey Dogsy, how are you? I feel less alone. Thank you for letting me know that I'm not by myself. It is a very unique experience not having a panel of people with me. Hi, Lewis. How you doing? Welcome. So it'll probably be a shorter show today because there's not as many points of view to really get around. But we will definitely try and bring you what we promise every week, even if it is just I. The comment section is going to have to pick up the slack, obviously, so we can we can have some kind of conversation. Otherwise, it's just going to be me talking into the void for the next however long. But I'm always up for a challenge. You know how it goes. All right, well, since it looks like it's just me, should we jump into it? Should we jump into this week's
hot load of hot topics?
There we go. Vera's voice is with us, even if she's only here in spirit at the moment. That's a terrifying thought. So there's been a plenty going on, but nothing more prevalent and more fear-inducing. I dare say, like the general public, than Donald Trump announcing on Truth Social earlier this week, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. We'll find out tonight one of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. What the actual fuck is that about? Obviously, if you are living under a rock, you know that there is the threat, I guess, the ever present threat of nuclear war going on and generally gestating in the background of our lives at the moment. But for the former leader of the free world to say that he's going to end civilizations is a worrying statement, to say the least. And I think that no matter what side of the politics you lie on, it's a worrying state that we can make these grand gestures and statements and think that the world is just going to kowtow and believe things. And as Dogsy said, I mean, there's also the fact that North Korea is testing ballistic missiles again and launched one towards Japan. I know, I feel like we are edging ever closer to that that midnight. That doomsday clock is edging ever closer, as we've been told. And it's an interesting place to be in, because we've had this conversation on the show before about the existential panic that a lot of younger generation people, Gen Alpha people, are having, living through this for the first time. For the millennials, and especially for Gen X, this is not the first time that we've been, and older than Gen X, the boomers, this isn't the first time we've had the threat of war, and especially nuclear war, waved over our heads. But is this now pushing the boundaries into threatening war crimes? I know that in Australia, we've got a very, very big news cycle about one of our living decorated soldiers being convicted of war crimes. But for, again, the president of the former free world to step forward and say, hey, I'm going to bomb a civilization back to the Stone Age. That's not right. That's not right. And I don't know that, hey, Photography US, I don't know where we go from this, because if you weren't worried before, it's certainly a worrying thing now. No, I am from Australia, so it's the accent usually confuses a few people, but downtown Australia here, it's 11:14 a.m. on Friday, the 10th of April. And we're still here. We're not glowing in the dark yet. So I'll put it to the people watching. Are you concerned about where we're at? Because obviously this Iran ceasefire it's such a worrying point that there's no guarantees of anything at the moment. Dogsy, what do you got to say? It's just like 2001 or again, the Middle East. Yeah. The Middle East, Britney's in the news, Justin Timberlake's in the news. In 5 more years, we'll get a second Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. Well, look, there's worse things that could happen, I guess, if you're a Tokyo Drift fan. North Korea has been testing nuclear weapons for like 20 years, never used them in a war, but the USA has used them. 100% push. I think that's the worrying thing. It's the stuff isn't about that though, the same as before with the USA. It's an excuse. And as we always say here, as we've been saying recently, you've got to follow the paper trail. At the end of the day, all of this war and this unrest isn't solely because of politics in the country that we're in. There are bigger things. The fact that we are fighting over oil is worrying, to say the least. And qui bono, as they say on last podcast on the left, who benefits from all of this? Because it's certainly not people in Israel, Iran, Lebanon, anyone really, except for maybe a select few people that are making profits from all of this warmongering, it is very scary, to say the least. Yeah, well, welcome. This is probably not the show for you if you don't like politics, because that's all we really talk about. We talk about the world, basically. So if it's the first time tuning in, we're trying to make sense of the world that we are living in so that we don't go crazy. Rich people get more rich. That's how it usually goes. 100%. I mean, I feel like 2025, 2026 is just kind of confirming all of those suspicions that we all had that this world is run by the rich and nothing else. I know, I mean, we've always known that, but it's just pushing the narrative even further because no one's in control. It seems the American people aren't in control with the elections. It seems that the people in these warring countries aren't in control because they don't get a say. It's a worry, but there is no easy answer to it either. And that's why we do this show, because you've got to scream into the void somewhere, and screaming into the void here on Uncensored Radio is more than okay. But we'll move on from one troublesome Trump to another, shall we? Because they like to stay in the news, strangely enough, in a very, very oddly timed statement. I don't know why we're getting this now, but the First Lady, Melania, is big mad, y'all. She's got some feelings. Melania Trump denies any relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. The First Lady, Melania Trump, told reporters on Thursday that she had, quote, never had a relationship, end quote, with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell. In a televised statement, it was unclear which specific accusations the First Lady was responding to exactly. She goes on to say, I have never been friends with Epstein. I am not an Epstein victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. The First Lady went on to say that that she and the president were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time. Overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. Okay, sure. We'll give you that conceit. But when we are picking and choosing our evidence as to who and how to prosecute anyone behind this, coincidence is a one-time thing. And that's the problem with these Epstein files and the way that they've been released, is that there is no concrete evidence for some people because of the ring they're operating in. Smart people don't use their real names. Smart people don't use real email addresses. Smart people use pseudonyms and speak in code, like the emails from G to Melania that are in the Epstein files. How common a name is Melania? I just want to know. I want to know from people in the world, how many Melanias do you know? Because for one to be in the Epstein files talking about, I can't wait to meet you in Palm Beach and catch up in Palm Beach, it's a little on the nose. And coincidence is coincidence until it's a pattern. And yes, you may be in the same social circles, but it doesn't mean you need to pose for photos with people. It doesn't mean that you interact with them consistently. We've seen previously on this show and in the news that the denials are very quickly replaced when the evidence is brought into real view. I mean, Pam's gone, Bondi has been booted, and I think she's done irrevocable damage to the investigation behind this. We're never going to know unless there is some pure unadulterated, unedited, unredacted version of the Epstein files floating out there. We're never really going to know because it was given to the wrong people. She's full of shit, just like her husband. Well, you said it, Joe, not just me. I am the biggest concern is obviously for the victims and the survivors that have stepped forward. I can imagine how useless they would probably feel and how helpless they would probably feel knowing that they're not getting the justice that they seek. And that's why we have to keep having these conversations, why they keep talking. And for every one person that stepped forward, we can imagine the hundreds, probably thousands of people that haven't or can't step forward and let us know what's going on with them. It's a scary thing, and we owe it to them to keep the conversation going, I think. Maybe we just keep talking, and we can have a moment where through the people and us keeping the conversation going, that is a slow burn justice. I don't know. And we can give them their day in court that way. I don't know. All right. What does Dogsy have to say? There was a username and password for his FedEx account left on those files, and people managed to log into it. Yeah, these aren't smart people. Okay, they know when to use code and stuff like that, but it isn't necessarily. They're not untraceable. Oh, let's put it that way. And I think the more time people are given with these files to investigate them, if they're the right people that are given time to investigate them, then it is definitely a way to get some kind of retribution and justice. I mean, I don't know how much justice you can get when Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting pretty in lucky white people jail, but we try, we keep on, we persevere, and that's the only way I think it's really going to matter and to make things work for them. But there is a sense of justice for some people. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a Friends fan, if you're a Matthew Perry fan, there was some great news this week. The woman responsible for the death of Matthew Perry, or one of the women responsible for the death of Matthew Perry, the so-called ketamine queen, Sherilyn Peace Garnett, has been sentenced to 15 years in prison. Now, oh no, sorry, I've read the wrong name. Jasveen Sangha is the ketamine queen. Sorry, doing this alone is not as easy as it looks, folks. We'll take that back. So yes, Jasveen Sangha has been sentenced by Sherilyn Peace Garnett, US District Judge, to 15 years for the death of the Friends star. He was only 54. We forget he was only 54 years old when he died, and it seems so long ago already, but it isn't. So she is one of the 5 defendants that have pled guilty in connection to the overdose. But she's interestingly the only one whose plea deal acknowledged the causing of Matthew Perry's death. So I think that she's read the writing on the wall and went, how do I save myself from this? Because 15 years is not a lot of time for the death of anyone, but especially for the death of someone who is so well known. Prosecutors in said the American British national's North Hollywood home was a drug selling emporium, selling a range of drugs to the wealthy and connected clients. So she basically did this as her side hustle to keep a jet set lifestyle. And look, I guess it's hard when it comes to people with substance issues. You are handing them a loaded gun at the end of the day. And that's a bigger conversation than than we normally have here as well. We do love a bit of gun control chat, gun reform chat, but we I don't know how, in good conscience, anyone, especially knowing somebody like Matthew Perry, who had well documented substance abuse issues, how you, in good conscience, do it for $1. You hand over something that could potentially and did end up killing him for some money. But that's what makes the world go around, as Push said before. The world is, sadly, for the rich and for the moneymakers, and the rest of us are just biding time here, it seems. But there is small justice in the case for Matthew Perry's family. We will see how the other defendants go. I think if one goes down, there's usually a sacrificial lamb, but given his celebrity, there might be a bit of a chase, a bit more pressure on people to actually get them put away and make a real amends for what has happened. Finding salvation is another topic of conversation this week, as Perez Hilton, former guest on this show, if you actually would like to go back and watch and see our conversation, which was actually really, really enlightening. I really enjoyed talking to Perez. But Perez Hilton has found God after his recent bout with death. The original influencer Perez Hilton says he has found God after a medical emergency left him near death. This is Perez's quote: "God presented himself to me and then did something I can only call miraculous. It was real, and this has been life-changing," he posted on Instagram. "I've been crying, but happy tears because this is just so crazy," he said to his fans. "I've been reading the Bible, and so much of what is said here I had already been thinking of. It's just overwhelming in the best, most beautiful way." He did go forward and talk about some mistakes in his past. Now, we'll get onto the religion of it all in just a second, because it's an interesting conversation. Hi, V. Thank you for joining us. She is here, folks. She's here, but she's watching and waiting. And there's lots of good people find God near death. Is he going to stop gossiping? That's what I was about to mention, because he does go on to talk about his original influencer status in the early 2000s. "I made a lot of mistakes in my past. We all have. Nobody's perfect. But my mistakes are very public. The internet is forever. Receipts are forever. I carry with me deep shame and regret. I'm sorry. I will continue to apologize. I've also reached out to make amends. I've apologized publicly and privately to dozens of people." And I guess that's the mark of real responsibility and real change, that he is doing things not in the public eye as well. Because those of us that are old enough to remember when Perez was the man, the original influencer, the king of gossip in the early 2000s, he could make and break careers and has done a lot of positive things for people, and he's also done a lot of negative things to people's career because of the power that he has. Yes, accountability is more than a buzzword, Vera. That is correct. But it's reassuring that it seems to be not just in the public view, because how often do we get these grand sweeping public apologies that, "Oh, I did nothing, I did something wrong and I should be forgiven because that's what I do. I've done the thing. I've stepped forward and said sorry, so everyone should automatically apologize. Just because you are willing to apologize, and this is part of, I guess, any good 12-step program as well, you make amends, but you've got to be prepared for people not to accept that apology because of the way that people really followed Perez's lead. The internet is toxic now, and there are toxic fandoms now, but it all started here. It was kind of revolutionary because it revealed the toxic side of this thing that was supposed to bring us all together, the internet, the World Wide Web, that is going to make us closer, bring nations closer, bring peoples closer. And it has really just kind of allowed people to weaponize their point of view in a way that is shocking. But as Vera just said, actions will speak louder than words. He has less vitriolic since he became a dad. And that was my opinion of him when we interviewed Perez as well. When Jeffrey said we were going to talk to Perez, I was like, oh God, this could be intense because he was known not to hold back. But the man that we interviewed was a parent and had been through more life and wasn't necessarily consumed with being the zeitgeist from which pop culture flowed. He was just talking to us about his life, and it's a really interesting conversation. And even the off-air conversations, he was very down to earth, very forthcoming. A great interview because he was just willing to speak about anything. And even though he did, as Vera said, capitalize on toxicity, it's a toxicity that was there. We see it with Megyn Kelly. Ad infinitum, everyone. You know, there is always going to be a figurehead for toxicity, and you can blame them to a certain point. But I think especially in the case of Perez and in the case of a celebrity kind of toxicity and even a political one, it should make people look inside them more and go, where is this coming from? Dogsy brings up a great point. Wise words from my therapist. You can unclog a toilet, but people will never forget the smell. And then it's about what you do next, right? It's about how you step forward and what you do to make a difference from the things that you've done. And I don't think you can ever fault someone for wanting to be better and for wanting to try and make amends for things that have happened. So good luck to you, Perez. The religion of it all I can't speak on. I'm not a religious person, as Vera famously said. She's broken up with Jesus many times before. But if it is what is soothing your soul, and if it is what is making you want to do better, be better, and try better, then more power. Because life changes in some really, really messed up ways really, really quickly, as Aubrey Plaza found out last year. Now, Aubrey's back in the news this year, revealing that she is pregnant. So she's announced that she's expecting her first child with partner Christopher Abbott. The news was confirmed via a rep for the 41-year-old White Lotus star, who told people that the baby news was a pleasant surprise after an incredibly tough year. It was a beautiful surprise after an emotional year, she told the publication, adding that they feel very blessed. Plaza and Abbott, 40, have been reportedly friends for some time. They work together off Broadway and as well as in film. I don't think any of us can really forget when, it's been 12 months now since Aubrey's husband, Jeff Nea, suddenly died from suicide in 2025. I'm very interested to see the blowback from this. Like, it's toxic, as we were just talking about. There are a lot of people that want to criticize her for A, moving on so quickly romantically, and B, getting pregnant. Now, as I said in my comment on the article, and you can jump over to our Facebook page if you want to talk about any of these stories that we've covered today. The Facebook page is down the bottom. You can have your opinion and give us a big serve of your uncensored opinion, because that's what we love. No one knows what went on inside that relationship. Living with somebody that has a mental health struggle is always something different as well. It's never a consistent thing. And obviously, Jeff's mental health struggle ended in a very, very tragic way, but nobody knows what went on inside that marriage. Nobody knows the day to day except for Aubrey. And I don't think that it is helpful or healthy to criticize a relationship when you aren't a part of it. You can have an opinion, but opinions are like assholes, as we find out on this show a lot. A lot of people have opinions and a lot of people are assholes. But just because somebody's married doesn't mean they're happily married. It doesn't mean they're not happily married, but it's a ride. And especially with somebody who is struggling with their mental health, it can't be an easy ride all of the time. So we don't know what kind of state their wedding vows led them to by the end of their marriage. But obviously, there were things that weren't rosy and happy and shiny. Now, the amount of time at which somebody recovers from losing a spouse is nobody's business either. I mean, who's to say their marriage was going to survive? And Aubrey has found somebody who is obviously helping her in a process that is so difficult about moving on from that death. And we can't criticize that. Vera says, you cannot hold her accountable. I don't think it's fair to expect her not to move forward. She genuinely grieved for her husband. Of course she did. She pulled, and there's no timestamp on grief. There's no acceptable notion on how quickly you do something after somebody dies. I mean, I'm going to take it out of the macro, as we do on this show a lot. When my father passed away, I was back on this show 2 days later, but it's because I needed to, especially when somebody's terminally ill. It's a horrendously slow process of letting go and losing somebody. And when it comes time that's over, a lot of the grief processes have started, and you grieve while they're still alive, while they're still with you. And the closure of death for some people can put a full stop on that. And that I don't think there's a judgment call there. I needed to do something else because I had been in that process for so long, and doing a show and talking about the world's problems was a nice distraction from talking about my problems and people focusing that energy on me. It's sometimes easy to be busy and compartmentalize. Yes, I know this is probably a bit of a therapy session, but to move things forward, to move the needle forward, is sometimes healthy. And I think Aubrey finding love again, I don't think that you go looking for that straight after somebody dies. It catches you by surprise. Vera says, how fickle that the world criticizes women for not having children and still criticizes them when they're having children. 100% V, I agree. Dogsy says, grief is a bitch. It affects everyone differently. Like my sister just goes into this massive state of denial and will even laugh like she's lost the plot because she thinks it's some kind of sick joke. Whereas I need some alone time to process. This gets everyone in different ways. Yeah. And I think just because it's not your grieving style, it's not your loss style, you can't criticize somebody else for making that choice. So good luck to them. They're both consenting adults. They're both they're in a relationship. It's not like it's a one night stand gone wrong that she's suddenly got this baby to care for. It's, as Vera said, the other side of the coin. Congratulations, but now they're going to criticize you for daring to have a baby. But choice is a great segue for the next discussion we're about to have. If you remember, if you're a viewer of the show, talked a little while ago about a rower from Team GB, Great Britain, Kurtz Adam Rosenthal's, who was unceremoniously dumped from the team because he dared to venture into OnlyFans to make money to support himself. Well, it runs in the family, or it strokes in the family, if you enjoy a little snide aside, because Kurt's brother, Franciscus Rosenthal, 20, has left Team GB and will now compete for Latvia after launching an adults-only subscription page to fund his career in canoe slalom, just like his brother before him. As we just says, coincidence or a pattern? You decide. And what does that pattern talk to us about? Yes, you are right. Correct. Now, a little bit more about this story. The athlete said he turned to the platform after the conventional side hustles like bartending and construction work made it impossible to keep up his training schedule. He said, "I started my page to fund my sports career after dedicating my life to it, but never receiving funding. I can finally afford my dream, but knowing it could be taken away from me at any time because of how I funded it sucks." So rather than risk a ban from Paddle UK, which suspended his brother over the content that he made, Klaas has switched allegiance to Latvia, where his family is originally from. So his argument is simple. Canoe slalom athletes need between £100,000 and £180,000 over a 4-year Olympic cycle. But the annual grant from Paddle UK is only £21,000. Two choices he wrote: either normalize paying athletes responsible for their salary, or normalize them funding themselves through whatever means necessary. He's not wrong, is he? At the end of the day, the big issue is that countries and governing bodies of countries, sports governing bodies of countries, are the first people to claim these athletes when they do amazing things and win gold medals or silver medals, bronze medals, make world records. They are very quick to claim them. But at the end of a 4-year cycle, when you're going to not even meet the minimum for what it takes for these athletes, and they are athletes, no matter what they compete in, to train, then what's the alternative? As Dogsy said, 21 grand is less than minimum wage, 40 hours a week in the UK. So how else do they fund this? As Klaas said, bartending, all that kind of stuff. Having a 9 to 5 means you can't, or a 5 till 9, or whatever bartending hours you manage to get, or retail hours, or call center hours. They can't dedicate the time to their craft. They can't dedicate the energy to not only training, but meal planning, conditioning, seeking out sponsors. All that kind of stuff takes time, and you can't do it when you're juggling 2 or 3 other jobs. Trust me, I know. Trying to keep a podcast afloat when you have 2 other jobs is the big thing, as well as when you have life. And I can't imagine at what trying to be at an elite Olympic level while doing so takes. I mean, it's ridiculous. He's not able to participate with income. There is no alternative. 100% Vera. And then what's the option? You don't have anyone to step forward to compete in these events, and then you opt out of the Olympics until somebody starts paying them. And at the end of the day, I don't think you can really judge people on how they make their money if they're not hurting anyone. OnlyFans is an age verified platform. Okay? He and his brother, young, attractive dudes. If they're not hurting anyone, if they're not breaking any laws, then what does it matter that they make their money however they make their money? The original conversation when we talked about the first brother was the reputation of Paddle UK. I don't know that anyone really cares. I hadn't heard of Paddle UK until that story prompted up. So we don't know. And I don't think anyone cares. And it is not an isolated incident. Yes, these two brothers have done it, but there's also other athletes. Jack Lauder, Noah Williams, and Maddie Lee have also begun OnlyFans pages facing to finance their goals. The only difference is the governing body has deemed their material acceptable. And then it goes into a conversation about the acceptability of sexuality in the modern day, which is, I think, a bigger conversation that I can have by myself here. But especially male sexuality, there's not really a big blowback when a female celebrity decides to do an OnlyFans, is there? There's a lot of male fans of that celebrity, that athlete, that whatever, who will jump in and they're happy to support. But when a male does the same thing, there's an issue. So it's an interesting stereotype that, again, is probably a bigger conversation that we need to have here. But I was thinking, Vera, we might be able to get you on to do your vent. I'll be able to mute myself and mute you and all that kind of stuff. So stay handy and we'll still be able to veer events, I think. So I think if you got the dollars and you want to support this young man, get on OnlyFans, support Team GB if you are that way inclined to support Team GB. Now, moving on from a dream is difficult, and as Mel B is finding out. So Mel B, aka Scary Spice, has been for the longest time the driving force behind a Spice Girls reunion. 90s nostalgia would explode, I'm sure. And it has kind of made her age. She just recently celebrated her 50th birthday, has made her realize that some doors just don't open no matter how hard you knock on them. She's been quizzed again on the nostalgia factor because of the 30th anniversary of the Spice Girls about some kind of reunion, about some kind of tour, appearance, movie, documentary, whatever. Mel B says, if it does a reunion, it'll be a shock to me. Let's put it this way. When I look at the 2019 tour and the feeling it gave me, I was in my element, but there comes a time, I'm 50, you can't be nagging everyone to go on tour if they don't want to. I laid that to rest when I turned 50. I've got fond memories, but I don't know if I would go back up on stage. So she's even suggested that the strongly rumored Netflix documentary may not happen after all. She said, I think that we've all been asked and we're all thinking about it at some point, but it has to be done the right way and it has to be honest. And not everybody wants to be honest. Ouch. Read into that what you will about the drama behind the Spice Girls. I know, dogs. Spice Girls drama in the news. It is the 2000s again, but not in a fun way. Look, let's again take it out of the macro and put it into the micro. Doing anything with a group of people as a cast is difficult. You have to negotiate time for schedules, for people's lives, for other people's commitments for work, for all that, for their kids, and make it work. And at the end of the day, you can make it work if people want to make it work and want to support things. But it's also okay, as we've learned over the years here, to let things go when they no longer serve you, when it no longer makes sense in your life, or it becomes a hindrance to your life, or causes undue stress to your life. And that's a hard conversation to have. In full transparency, there's been many times when what we're doing here now has been called into question, and we wonder if we should keep doing it, why we should keep doing it. But then something will happen. We'll get a message from somebody who says, I've been an uncensored radio person for 12 years, or watching your episode really made me think about my life and helped me with my life, or it made me smile when I was having a bad day, or it made me think of things in a different way. And that's why, for me, we keep doing this show, and we persevere even at times of great personal stress, or lack of hosts, stuff like that. We keep going because we believe in what we do, and what we do is important. We may not have millions of downloads and hundreds of thousands of viewers, but the people that watch us and interact with us, like you're doing now, those of you that are here, that makes it worth it. And the friendships that we have and the relationships that we have made from this show make it worth it. And as Dogsy said, sometimes it just needs to be a conversation. I think all they need to do is sit down in a room, tell each other what they want, what they really, really want. And sometimes those needs don't mesh up all the time. And that's also okay. That's why sometimes we do a one person UCR live. I think this is the first one in history. I'm not gonna blow my own horn, but I think this is the first UCR live solo show ever. I've done some little random weekday ones. Oh, there might have been one, but this is 47 minutes worth of content, people. It may be me rambling, but it's 47 minutes of content. That's no small feat by yourself and off the cuff. So the Spice Girls look like a no-go, which is sad, but sometimes the shit you really want can't happen. And as Dogsy said, it does feel very 2000s. Christina's glad she's not here. We have to talk about Britney Spears. Now, she's back in the news again. She has been reunited with her family for better or for ill, I guess, depending on what you believe. The intent of the Spears family is, when it comes to Britney and why now. So, as you can see in the photo, Britney Spears' children, Sean Preston and Jaden James, have dropped their last name Federline and now are using the surname Spears. Reports say the boys want to be closer to their mum. Britney shared a new Instagram post showing her reunited with her sons on a yacht after a recent DUI arrest. Obviously, we covered that because we cover all things Britney. She is the cash cow of since Perez, since Perez Hilton, Britney's been the cash cow of celebrity talk. But the 44-year-old pop star is due to appear in court for her DUI arrest on May 4th after being held for 3 hours and transported to a hospital to determine her blood alcohol content. Look, I am happy for them if this is a genuine thing. But let us note that Spears' child support payments to Kevin Federline for her sons were scheduled to end in November 2024. The payments continued after for her youngest son, Jaden, who turned 18 in September 2024 because of a provision lasting until high school graduation that year. Cut forward to 2026. The paydays have stopped. these young men who have not wanted a relationship with their mother now want to reconnect. Now want to be a part of her life. Now want to adopt this Spears name, especially now that one of them's trying for a music career. As I said in my comment, I hope for her sake that it is a genuine thing, that it is a genuine want and desire for them to rekindle a relationship with their mother and not just a payday and a notoriety moment. Because even though they're taking her name, at the moment, the Spears name is not holding the water it's used to, because there is massive gossip at the moment about some kind of return for Britney. And music executives are wary of what's going on because of the drama that's been going on and public image at the moment. While Britney has been saying that she is never going to return, she's never going to perform again, the recording career was never really made clear, and maybe a path forward. She was pictured with Diane Warren, songwriter Diane Warren, over the Easter weekend. So if there is any kind of, weight to the rumors that she's going to continue on, it's an interesting reunion to have. I'm sure that they are probably friends or at least acquaintances, but as we've mentioned today, coincidence or a pattern, we don't know. As Vera said, suspect. Let's hope they are not another couple of parasites, but they are Kevin Federline's sons, so you never know. You never know. Vera, if you want to try and jump on, we could probably do Vera events. I think I can mute myself, so if you want to try and jump on, we can mute me and let you back in and do all the things. There was another brief celebrity news moment. Tori Spelling was involved in it. That's a pretty bad accident with herself and 7 children, 4 of them being hers, having to be taken to hospital. No serious injuries, just bumps and scratches and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, being in a car accident with your kids is bad enough, and imagine being in a car accident with other people's kids and with 7 kids, and then being Tori Spelling of it all is also a little bit dramatic, because Tori's been through the ringer, as we know. But there is some good news as well. If you are a nostalgia fiend like I am, like many of us are, Netflix has officially announced their Scooby-Doo cast, their live-action Scooby-Doo cast. And there's also going to be a Troop Beverly Hills sequel. Oh my God. If you're a fan of Troop Beverly Hills, the 80s Shelley Long movie, Cameron Diaz is developing a sequel to be written and directed by Clea Duvall. So stay tuned, people. It looks like we have the lady here herself. So we're going to try and let off a little bit of excess steam with Vera Vance. Okay. I don't know how this is going to work. We're going to give it a go. But 3, 2, 1, Vera, vent.
Been a hell of a week, kids. Can we talk about the Operation Epstein Fury, which has kind of dominated the world for the last 28 days? So this week, our gas prices here in the States have topped $4.16 a gallon. Trump is claiming to negotiate a ceasefire that lasted less than 24 hours. Within 12 hours, Bibi Netanyahu had already broken the ceasefire and started firing on Lebanon. So that's our negotiator in chief getting things reopened. And now he's patting himself on the back because the Strait of Hormuz was opened for about 8 hours and 4 ships got through. Guess what, dumbass? if you hadn't started Operation Epstein Fury, the Hormuz Strait would still be open. It was open when we started this damn thing. I'm finding the incompetence of this administration absolutely breathtaking. It's amazing. I mean, they went into this with no real war plan. They never presented it to the American people or even to the American Congress. They just decided, yeah, Bibi wants to have a war, so let's go have a war. And, it has nothing to do with the fact that everybody's clamoring for the Epstein files because, why would they start a war to do that except Trump's own words said a failing president is going to start a war, and suddenly there's a war with no reason. And we are spending $1 billion a day, and we are entering our fifth week. We are entering our fifth week of this fucking catastrophe. Meanwhile, Hegseth is spouting vainglorious nonsense all over the world about ignoring the rules of engagement, and the rules of engagement don't apply to us because we're fighting a holy war. What? A holy war? Are you fucking kidding me? Holy war should not be fought by a government who keeps church and state separate according to our First Amendment. Everybody knows the separation of church and state is the First Amendment to the Constitution. How fucking dumb are you to start a holy war? And Pete Hegseth, who had 8 months in a fucking volunteer platoon in the National Guard when he was 20 and has drank away all the brain cells that might have taught him something in basic training, has no fucking idea what a war plan is, has no fucking idea about strategies, exit strategies, or entrance strategies. And since starting this war, he's attempted a military purge for reasons that are unknown to most of us. I'm sure they're known to somebody, but they're not talking about it. He attempted to fire 30 generals from the American Army. 30. That's a lot of fucking know-how. That's a lot of fucking institutional memory to just wipe out. And you know why? The only reason we know is that there was an order that Hegseth gave that none of those generals was willing to carry out. Was it a ground war against Iran? Was it an invasion against Iran? Was it a ground war against the American people? Was it military law here in this country? Because that's been suggested more than once by the president himself that he could declare military law and take over all elections or delay elections completely. And it's a pretty big play from the tyrannical playbook. Come on, kids. Doesn't that sound a little bit scary? And of course, meanwhile, there was a supposed rescue in Iran where they were supposedly going in to rescue somebody from the shot down plane that miraculously landed alive 100 miles away from the crash and just close to the enriched uranium that the United States is supposed to want out of Iran. So we don't know who this supposed soldier is. We never heard a thing about the rescue except that it was affected. They're not parading this soldier out in the streets and say, look at our boy's home. Congratulations. Here's the Medal of Honor. You survived and you stood up for your country. Where's all that? No, he came home on Easter weekend. Instead of all that, we get Trump on air talking about committing war crimes, talking about annihilating a civilization, talking about the most outrageous fucking things. He's demented and the rest of his troop is incompetent. They went out of their way to attack the Vatican because Pope Leo had the nerve to say that Jesus is not about war after they had already said that God was on our side and this was a holy war. Breathtaking incompetence. Breathtaking. It gets weirder and dumber every fucking day. And we are still spending $1 billion a day. And there's a space voyage going on a multinational space voyage. The Canadian astronaut has gone up with the American team for the first time, and it's been successful so far, and it's the most significant space voyage in 50 fucking years, and it's barely making the news. You know, when the space program first came about and I was a kid, it was an event when a spacecraft went up. We sat around and watched the countdown. I had to watch the countdown on my phone because I couldn't find it live on my television. And now this splashdown is going to happen tomorrow night. And I'm probably going to end up watching it on my phone. But we hear every fucking day about this stupid administration. And J.D. Vance went to a rally to support Viktor Orban, one of the biggest tyrants in Europe. What the fuck is going on here? I don't recognize my country, and I hope to God that every single person that's listening to this doesn't recognize it either, because we need to stop it. It's not gone yet, but this democracy is very fucking fragile. Get in the streets, get on the phone, call your representatives, vote, vote, vote. And make sure you're voting for people who want to see you have health care, who want to see you have a living wage, who want to see you own a home. Stop voting for people who want to be king. This madman has got to end. I'm so ready for this to be over. Ugh.
Okay. All right. I think we've done it, folks. I had to mute Vera because my voice is coming through and it's a bit of a cacophony, but we have made it to the end of a very interesting episode of UCR Live. Thank you for sticking with us if you've been here. Thank you, Vera, for tuning in, and we will get our technical difficulties sorted out, because we will, if today's show has proven anything, we will keep coming at you no matter what. We will see you again soon, folks. Stay uncensored. Bye.